Well, so far it's just me. We're trying to get the comments set up. And I appreciate my own IT guy, my son, who is helping me do this. Okay, so before I start, I'd like to thank my friend Amanda. Who, oops, got a little feedback there. My friend Amanda helped me yesterday by giving me feedback on my camera. And so I wanted to tell her thank you and you can check her channel out at Mandarin Makes. She crochets these really cute little fuzzy, adorable animals of all different kinds. I don't know where she gets her ideas, but anyway, I'm trying to get her on this channel, but talking her into it is a little bit of a challenge. So hopefully one of these days we'll be able to do a live or more together, which would be a lot of fun. Also, I'd like to apologize for those who commented yesterday on my live stream. I'm new. I didn't know that you had to allow comments. And so my IT guy, who is my youngest son who lives here, he showed me how to go in and do that. So hopefully if you make any comments, I can see them this time. All right, so yesterday we were going through some of the stories that I've written before on medium.com. And I skipped over a story because it was in 3 parts and it was going to be a little bit on the long side. So I thought that at the beginning of this video would be the perfect time to start that and to get that 3-parter out of the way. Each part is actually only about 2 minutes according to Medium, so it still wouldn't be a very long story. And this one is called, it looks like Jessie is on live, so I hope that you can hear me okay, and I hope that my screen orientation is right. It was a little messed up yesterday too. Okay, so this story is called Not Myself Anymore. And it was published in December of 2021 on medium.com. If you're familiar with that platform, you can read thousands of writers, new writers as well as seasoned writers, and they all have a huge variety of different kinds of stories that you can read. Okay, so getting into this one. If you could be any person, living or dead, who would you be? Who would you change your life with? Not many people are so satisfied with their own lives that they wouldn't at least consider the idea. That's how this whole thing started. And it's not what you're thinking. Outwardly, I am still the same blonde 17-year-old girl who walked down that sidewalk on a sunny Thursday morning, dreaming of weekend possibilities and totally oblivious to the fact that I was being watched. But inside, I am forever changed in ways I haven't fully realized yet. I say it that way because I have found myself automatically replying to questions with answers that are not mine. The first time it happened, I searched my mind for thoughts that might have led to that answer, and like a train track, I followed it backwards to find the beginning. Nothing. There's just nothing there. And it's happened so many times since then that I feel as if I am 2 persons inside. One is really me, but that's not the person everyone hears. I am just an observer, like you, to the actions and words that are somehow me now. And there's no way I can tell anyone who would believe me. Where would I even start? Excuse me, I know I just said I want a salad for lunch, but you know I've always hated lettuce. Someone else wants salad for lunch, and I don't know why this is happening to me. Right, like anyone would believe that. And here's the kicker. Not only would no one believe this, but my time is up tomorrow. After that, it won't matter anyhow. So, can I at least tell you? That way, someone will know besides me that I was once here, even if no one else can hear the real me anymore. Okay. And the actual story was going to be um, about 6 to 7 minutes long. And at that time, when I was writing on Medium, I was only writing shorter pieces. And so I thought it would be easier for people to get through if there were, at least, if it was cut up into at least 2 or 3 parts. Okay, so let me go to the second part. If I can find it here. Okay, there's the link. Okay, and the second part was actually 4 minutes. So maybe it was longer than 7. Okay. Alrighty. I think I began to suspect that I was being watched when I was heading for the bus stop, walking past the History Museum. You know, the one on Clark Street? I was waiting for the bus along with a group of 7 or 8 people, so it's not like I was alone. But I felt the hair raise on the back of my neck and turned quickly to scan the faces around me. No one looked suspicious, but I still felt the sensation of eyes following me. Even when I got on the bus and took a seat at the very back, that feeling didn't go away. I wanted to talk to my sister about what had happened, but she was on her cell phone when I walked in the house after school that day and eventually left the room for privacy. Sheesh. I don't care about all of her junior high school drama, but she's usually pretty good about listening to me. The next morning was all the usual craziness, getting ready for school, catching a ride with Dad on his way to work. It just never felt like the right moment to bring it up. I really should have told someone, anyone. Maybe if I had said something then, it wouldn't be so hard for people to believe me now. Water under the bridge, I guess. It still doesn't solve my problem of what to do about it now. I tried a Google search. How do you even look up something like that? Not feeling like yourself lately? 10 signs you have been taken over by an alien. Believe me, it has occurred to me. Now, I'm just getting ahead of myself. That entire day I felt cold. It was already late spring and windy as usual. All the girls had started wearing short sleeves. Jackets and sweaters had been put away in anticipation of summer heat, but to me it felt like late autumn, not just the temperature. There was something in the air that felt sad, like the trees and summer flowers were slowly dying as they always did before winter. I just couldn't shake that feeling. I could have forgotten about the feeling of being watched the day before if it hadn't been for that next day and the perception of overwhelming sadness and death. So, calculus class, then composition, then history, my favorite. Each class droned on. I felt a little sleepy before lunch. Then I was startled by a buzzing sound down the hallway. I sat up straighter, expecting Coach West to make an announcement. The coach sat slumped in front of his desk, eyes on a magazine he was reading, as if he didn't hear anything. I slowly looked around the room. No one else was reacting to the noise either, which, by the way, was getting louder by the second. I raised my hand. Coach? No one moved. Maybe the sound was too loud for him to hear me. I tried again. Coach! He turned a page and continued reading. They can't hear you, Lexa. The buzzing suddenly stopped. Well, mid-buzz, anyway. And standing just inside the door was an older man I had never seen before. His black suit and sunglasses made him look like one of those government men on that television show who protect the president. Are you FBI? The question popped out before I could stop it. His answer was short. No, I'm not FBI. Why am I the only one who sees you? Out of the 100 questions screaming in my head, this was the loudest. All your questions will be answered in due time. For now, all you need to know is that you need to come with me. It is important. Yes, he held up his hand to stop me from speaking. It's life and death important. How do I know you're not here to kidnap me? It seemed like a logical question. Lexa, look around. If I wanted to kidnap you, do you really think anyone in this room could stop me? When we leave this building, you will be perfectly safe, I promise you. We need you too much to have any harm come to you. When I heard those last words, I swear I felt a thrill of self-importance. Really? The government needed me? Okay, Lexa, back down to earth, girl. He could be saying what he thinks you want to hear. But he was right about one thing. No one else, for whatever reason, was even aware of him being in the room. He could literally do whatever he wanted. I had no choice, but I decided to trust him. He told me to sit in the back seat when we got to the black Chevy Suburban. It had that new car smell. The seats were leather, and I kept sliding around, even with the seatbelt strapped. We were 2 blocks away from the school when I thought to ask, won't they miss me for the rest of my classes? Mr. Mysterious slid his dark glasses down his nose to look at me in the rear view mirror. We've already taken care of that. There's one question I need to ask you now, Lexa. Think carefully before you reply. If you could be any person, living or dead, who would you be? Who would you change your life with? And that was the end of part 2. Okay, let me check my questions because I think someone has been asking me a question. Nigel Rose asked me if I could respond to him. And no, someone is not stalking me. This is a story that I wrote about 3 years ago. Well, maybe a little bit before that, because I think this is one of the stories that I put on Kindle books. And then when I started writing for Medium.com, I transferred a lot of my stories over. And so this is just a story. It's just fiction. Nobody's in trouble with the government. Nobody's been kidnapped. This is okay. This happened to an imaginary person, someone who's in my own imagination, and that I chose to share with the entire world. Unfortunately, the entire world didn't find it on Kindle, and only a few people found it on Medium, actually. Let me see. I got 3 comments on that story. And Jimmy said, this is really a refreshing story. I look forward to the end. And I responded to that. I was like, I'm so glad that you found it interesting so far. And CA said, awesome, compelling. One of the things I have read on here. I'm dying for part 3, Judy. Please put it up soon. It was so nice to know that people actually enjoyed my writing. And the thing about Medium is that anybody can write on it. Even if you're not a very good writer, if you're just starting out, it's the perfect place to start. And there are people who just started on there like this week or this month, and they enjoy writing all different kinds of stories, whether it's poetry or fiction stories or their biography, their memoirs. And there are tech pieces like there's a lot of stuff about crypto and all kinds of computer systems that are just way over my head. But they all have an audience on Medium, And so anyone can write there. And if you decide that you want to get monetized, it's pretty easy to get monetized too, and it's only $5 a month. So it's a pretty good little side hustle if you're looking for a little extra income. But what's really great is that you can ask for advice from writers who've had a lot more experience than you, and so you can improve your writing skills if you're looking to do that. It's a great creative outlet. And then my third comment on that story was Deb, who said, I love part 2 of your story, Judy. I am running to read part 1. Oh, no, running to read part 3 now. So she must have read the parts after I already had all 3 parts published. So glad I get to binge read, haha. And that is one thing that I enjoy doing on Medium as well, is binge reading. Especially if I have a favorite writer, I will go in and if I find a story that they've written that I like, I will go in and read maybe 3 or 4 or 5. I think one time I even tried this little experiment where I went in and I think I read like 20 articles by the same writer in a single day. And I love doing that. A couple of times that I did it, the writer would tell me that they noticed the next day that they had a little boost in what they had earned. So that was pretty cool. Okay, so let me see if I can go find part 3. Read the conclusion. Okay, I'm so glad I put links to those in there. Okay, Not Myself Anymore, part 3. Okay. I don't know if I've mentioned it before. Her name is Lexa. I don't know why it wouldn't have been in part 1 and part 2, but it just made me curious the way that I put that link in. It said, read the conclusion to Lexa's story. And I thought, have I even said her name? Okay. So Lexa's in the back of this Suburban, and she is thinking about who she would trade places with, or even if she would. Well, he said to think carefully, so I did. I thought about my life now, unimportant as it is. I thought about all the celebrities I've read about, all the athletes. I thought about my teachers, my parents, the president. I thought about my history class and all the people I'd read about in books. Moses, Jesus, Genghis Khan, Einstein, Hitler. Whose life would I want to live? I already knew how most of those people died. Why would I want to change places with a dead person? Well, that left a huge group of people out. Finally, I narrowed it down. Somebody famous today, somebody pretty, smart, and with lots of money. A look of satisfaction came across the agent's face at my reply. I'm pleased you phrased your answer that way. I have a proposition for you. You can still choose to say no after I present you with all the facts, but I hope you will consider all of the information before making your decision. Will you promise to do that? I nodded. So for the next half hour as he drove, I learned about new research in the field of heurogenics and how secret testing was being conducted in a facility not far from our own peaceful town. Later, I checked out heurogenics on YouTube using the Shift F4 spacebar code, but now all of the content has been removed. Check it out for yourself. That is Shift F4 spacebar. As he finished talking, we made a left turn off the highway onto a black-topped road, traveled for about a mile, and then hit a dirt road up to an old farmhouse. Turning off the ignition, he concluded with, "Well, what do you think so far?" What could I say? Most of the words he'd used were over my head, but I made a stab at it anyway. Surely it couldn't possibly be as horrible as I was beginning to comprehend. Okay, if I understand you, some rich old woman had paid you a lot of money to find a new young body, and somehow you're going to put her what? Her brain? Her mind? Into mine? But I have to be genetically compatible, which you already know I am because you've been observing me for several months now. What I don't get is how this is life or death important. My mind kept repeating his remark to me that I was not in any danger. He'd already assured me that they needed me to be healthy, happy, and cooperative. And I could see how the old woman, whoever she was, would need me to be unharmed. He considered for a moment, then opened the driver's door to step out. I may have exaggerated that part just a bit. However, it is true that our client is elderly and not in good health. Since she is paying us a very large amount of money, her continued life is certainly a factor in the equation. He paused before reaching into the seat beside him to lift up a small silver canister. What I haven't told you is that this is much too important to leave to you to decide, Lexa. But I can promise you there will be no pain. You won't feel a thing. After the procedure is complete, you will gradually lose your sense of self. In 2 months, give or take a week, our client will have gained over 60 years of life. This will change the future for all of us. She, you, will continue to be very wealthy. So, in a way, you will also benefit. I stared at him in horror, open-mouthed, too stunned to even speak. Before I could take a breath to scream, he pulled the pin on the canister, tossed it into the front seat, and slammed the door, locking it securely. Turning his back, he ignored me as my fists pounded against the window, and I started screaming for him to let me go. That's the last thing I remember. When I came to, I was standing outside my house. No one ever asked me any questions about that day, and I never saw Mr. Mysterious again. There's so much I don't know. I don't know if there is anyone who can help me. I don't know who this woman is whose consciousness I can feel becoming stronger and stronger inside my head each day, but there is one thing I do know. I keep thinking back to the original question, who would I change places with? That implied a choice. I had none. Okay, and you know what I'm thinking? Because I got that comment from someone a few minutes ago who wanted to know if someone was stalking me. And I'm like, maybe I'm reading this story with a little bit too much emphasis. I don't know, because obviously he thought what I was reading was really happening. And so I wish there was some way, maybe I could hold up a sign that says, this is just a fiction story. This is just a story. Anything you hear me reading is not something that's really happening. I need to get a sign, because there are quite a few of my stories that, have a little bit of a twist in them. And I wouldn't want anyone to call 911 thinking that, I was in some imminent danger of something. Wouldn't that be awful if there was because I live like 2 blocks from the police department. If the police showed up knocking on my door, it would scare the life out of me. Of course, my son is outside working, so he'd see them first. And they'd be like, is your mom okay? Okay. And once again, I want to apologize for anyone who commented yesterday. I, and those comments, if you don't have your comments turned on when you're doing live, they never come back. You never see them at all. Fortunately, I did have a friend who saw some of them. She told me that there were people who were commenting, but I hadn't figured that out yet. And so my son helped me figure that out. And I'm very, very grateful for him. Okay. And let me see if I can find another story to read. Oh, you might have noticed my cup. I was desperate enough to use this cup this time. It says, "I'm a librarian. I will Dewey decimate you." And I found this in a thrift store, and I meant to donate it to the local library where I used to work, and I haven't got around to doing it yet. And that's really sad because I live like 1,000 feet from the library. And so it just says something either for, how busy I am, or how it's just not something that's on my priority list to get done. But anyway, I will get that done one of these days. Oh, and I'll wash it out before I take it over to them. I figured somebody over there would think that it was funny. Either Patty or Carla or Bailey. Uh, and I'll just let them fight over who gets it. And maybe none of them want it. I don't know. Maybe it'll get put out on the donation table. And that would be okay too. So I'm going to go back to my list of stories that I wrote. And we are still in the month of December of 2021. And let me see. Oh no, I've gone out of that list. Okay. Let me get back. There we go. And we will get back there. Okay. Unfortunately, Michael, I have no money for shipping a cup. So, and it might even end up broken before it even gets to you. So, but are you that interested in books or libraries that you would want a cup that says that? Okay. I'm having to go back through the list again because I went back a little bit too far, and I've been writing on the platform for 3 years, so I have over 700 stories and articles published, and not all of them are fiction. Some of them, I would say maybe half of the stories are about the platform itself, because there are so many new people that start writing on Medium that that want to know, how everything works. And so I know that's the way I was when I first started writing on Medium. I was like, well, does it matter if you comment on other writers' articles? Why is everybody highlighting things from my article? Um, how many claps should you give? Because there have been like battles waged over whether one clap is okay, or whether you should give the full 50, or whether it matters. And I've always been like, well, you know what? It only takes 6 seconds to give somebody 50 claps on a story that they've written. And if you took the time to read it, then you might as well go ahead and give them the 50 claps. Occasionally, there have been some that were really poorly written, and, I may have given them, 25 claps instead, and, told them that, that they can do this, that, I will tell them what I liked about the story, and try to encourage them to keep honing their skills. Let me see, January 2022. Oh, okay. Okay. We are almost there. And, well, let me read one to you about, oh, okay. I don't think I read this one before when I was going through it yesterday. This is a little bit of an autobiography, And the name of the story was What I'd Tell My Father If He Were Still Alive. And if you weren't here yesterday, I have been talking about how I wrote a lot of these stories that are dated in December of 2021 is when I was visiting my cousin who lived in Florida at the time. They actually moved to Florida to get away from the tornadoes in Oklahoma. And then they lived on the inside of the Gulf, the inside curve near Tampa. And there hadn't been, my cousin told me, there hadn't been a hurricane there recorded in over 90 years. And then like suddenly, like within the last couple of years, that inside coast started getting hit more and more often. And they just got tired of evacuating. And so they decided to move back to Oklahoma and brave the tornadoes rather than a hurricane. So most of these, or a lot of these stories that were published this month in December of 2021 was while I was visiting her and her family. Okay, so what I'd tell my father if he were still alive. There's something about this time of year that makes me a little depressed and start remembering my childhood. I've always enjoyed writing, and I still remember my father telling me that I could be anything, do anything I wanted to. His actions tell me that he didn't really believe that for himself. My father died when he was 57. In terms of age, I've already outlived him. And 57 feels just way too young for death. Even for a grown child. In his mid-20s, he fought in the Korean conflict. He never talked about his experiences or what he saw and did. But I know deep down that it changed him. I knew there was a reason I didn't read this yesterday. This is a difficult subject for me because my father kept so many of his problems and issues to himself, choosing to suffer in silence. It made life complicated for 5 daughters, who all grew up thinking that this was the way all men were, and being genetically disposed to seek out men who remind them of their father. Well, that makes a difference when the only thing you're seeking out is broken men so you can fix them with your love and care. Of the 5 of us girls, one never married, choosing instead to raise 2 children by herself. The rest of us have been married and divorced at least once. I've noticed that husbands and brothers-in-law have all had similar issues and personalities as my father. If my adult self could go back and give my father advice that he would listen to and value, I'd tell him that he doesn't have to be strong all the time. That every single person has times when they are afraid or worried. Or not confident in their ability to figure out what to do. That being silent is not a sign of strength, and being anxious is not a sign of weakness. That it's okay to be human and make mistakes. I'm sorry. I'm not one of those pretty criers. I'd tell him that every day manages to take care of itself. Notice the little things around you. Be grateful and show your children a good example of flexibility, kindness, patience, forgiveness. Be available to them. Talk to them like real people. Tell them with words that you love them and they are important to you. Sorry, I need to get a tissue. Okay, let me see if I can finish this. Oh, goodness. If you share your problems, Dad, then maybe you won't have to drink to self-medicate. Let the past go. You can't do anything about what's already happened except try to live a better life from this point on. Learn from your mistakes. Try to make amends the best you can. Journaling worked for me, Dad. Maybe it would help you too. Take care of your health the best you can. I never saw you exercise or move very much at all. Besides your guitar, I never saw you do anything that brought you joy or made you smile. No wonder you were so unhappy. Don't spend so much time in your head. Find out what makes you contented. Even in the darkest day, there's something that gives you hope. Find that something. Here's what I'd tell every father out there. Look in your child's eyes and see yourself. Be the kind of father you wanted for yourself. If you're alive, then it's not too late. Those were the hardest stories that I had to write, and that's the reason why I didn't write that many of them. If I wrote my biography, it would be to be published posthumously, I'm sure, because I wouldn't want people having me read those in like book readings or book signings, whatever. Anyway, sorry about that. Okay. I knew there was a reason I skipped that yesterday. Okay. Now, I am so hoping that my cousin is not going to be watching this this particular video at any point in the future, because this one was kind of like, okay, I mentioned yesterday that when Nona and I would, and I probably shouldn't have said her name. She wouldn't be very happy with me. Anyway, when we were visiting, the mornings would be spent with me writing. Her husband was writing at the time too, back in his office, and I would be on my laptop writing my stories, and I'm not sure exactly what Nona would be doing, but anyway, during the evenings though, when we got together, we would be we'd watch like British drama, like Downton Abbey and Jane Austen movies and things like that. And but one thing that she had started doing was, when she was watching, see, when I watch TV, when I watch a movie or a show, I look for the nuances in faces and in actions, and because they're usually filmed or edited in such a way that, you know, every little second, every particular movement plays into the plot of the show. And if you miss something because you're looking somewhere else, or your attention is just half there, then you miss some important things, maybe an important glance or something. And so she would sit there watching TV, and she would be playing games on her phone. And I like to play games too, but whenever I play a game, like, my attention is on the game. I I enjoy the action and everything that's going on, and especially if there's a timer. But I wrote this next story because she was doing that on her phone every night, and it was called How Not to Watch Television. Okay. Have you ever watched a movie or television show with someone who kept checking their phone? Maybe they were expecting a call, or texting in a conversation, or playing a game. Maybe they were doing chores like writing a term paper or folding laundry. Maybe you looked over as they began to snore, which she didn't do that. I will clarify, she was not snoring at any point. If you are the person trying to multitask, I'm begging you, please just go to another room because I'm trying to focus here. Having said that, I'm fairly skilled in blocking out most distractions. I can ignore screaming children who are throwing food, passing ambulances with sirens blaring, Jimmy in the driveway with the bass at 20 hertz and volume on full blast, and the call of the laundry that's backing up by the hour. I can ignore all that. When I'm in a face-to-face conversation with someone, I pay attention. I really listen. I watch facial movements, eye contact, body language, or see moisture gathering in the eyes because I'm such a crier. It's horrible. I perceive changes in emotion or intensity in the voice. The briefest of glances made across a room, even the smallest of gestures, do not escape me. I intuit. All of these details are what directors are carefully place in what we see on the screen. If a viewer looks away for just a moment, a vital element might be missed in that carefully crafted romance or mystery scene. I do not want to be the viewer that misses that important clue on which the entire plot hinges. Please don't make me. I'm not saying that you should not take care of those phone calls or texts or chores. If something earth-shattering happens, it should absolutely take precedence over whatever imaginary drama is unfolding on the screen. Pause the TV and take care of what needs to be taken care of. But if you're watching with a serious watcher, aka me, don't interrupt conversation or events on the screen to talk to me, especially as I might throw popcorn at you in surprise if you interrupt at a particularly intense moment. I get very involved with the plot, storyline, and while I might try to listen to you, I consider it rude to interrupt both an actual person or a movie. Know that I will resent you for doing this. Better to wait until a commercial break or until the smoke and flames from the kitchen become impossible to ignore. So, and thank goodness she never asked me about that. And, to her it didn't matter anyway, so she could get, I guess, apparently she's one of those people that really can multitask. I'm one of those people, like if I'm listening to music and it has words, it has lyrics, if I know those words, I will be singing along. So if I'm trying to read something, some text that's in front of me, and listen to the words of a song, they are going to get jumbled up. And I don't know how people manage to do both. I really don't. But when I was in school, when I was in college, there would be people who would be listening to the radio as they were studying for a test. And I'm like, how can you do that? How can you get something out of both? Because it seems to me like the words would just kind of like smush together. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, and maybe that's just the way my brain works. Okay. So, I don't know why I keep going back too far. Okay, out of my 710 stories that I wrote, which one will I read for you now? Oh, it's gonna go back much quicker this time. Okay. I'm seeing a lot of stories that I wrote about the Medium platform itself. And then sometimes there's one coming up pretty soon that I wrote in January of 2022 that another writer had asked me a comment about. And so I wrote a story just for that one specific writer, and that was pretty funny. Okay. So, where are we at? Let me. Okay. All right, we got it. What keeps me warm? Confessions of a Bookworm. I don't know if you enjoy reading books. I used to be a much bigger reader than I am now. I I loved reading books constantly, and I've kind of slowed down on that. I think even though I still read quite a bit on the computer, I think I just feel like I read so much that whenever I stop for the day, that I really just want to watch, like Netflix or Hulu or something instead of reading yet another wall of text. Okay, what keeps me warm? Confessions of a Bookworm. Bookshops are like candy to me. Well, they still are. I'm still attracted to bookshops and to like that section of a thrift store. I just love going into a thrift store and finding the book section, even though a lot of times I don't end up getting anything. Anyway, let me get back to the story. Irresistible like a magnet, they draw me to them, promising adventures within. Contained inside are places and people that will become as well known and as dear to me as if they were flesh and blood. Do you feel that way about your characters? I mean, I think a lot of people have felt that way about Jane Austen's characters, especially. Like Elizabeth Bennet could be a real person. She really could. Some authors just do a better job of character description and world building. So there are some characters that definitely feel like they could be real people. Oh, the choices of books. I know I can't have them all, but why can't I have them all? A freshly opened book even smells wonderful. I love the smell of when you open up a brand new book. It just has a smell that nothing else has. You don't sniff your laptop that way, or your tablet. They don't smell that way ever, even with brand new books, even with brand new stories. Okay, a freshly opened book even smells wonderful. It may have languished unopened on the library shelf for years, but my fingers open the pages, and now it is mine. My life, my friends, my adventures. Oh, and so with this article, I added pictures of a bookshop that I had gone to with my daughter near Victoria, Texas. I can't remember the name of the town, but the bookstore was a very interesting bookstore. And on the back of on the side of one of the doors, they had put it wasn't a sign, it's actually painted on the wall, a quote from Margarita Engel that says, "Books are door-shaped portals carrying me across oceans and centuries, helping me feel less alone." And I have never been lonely when reading a book. That is so true. I never thought about that until just now. Adventures I will remember and claim as mine for the rest of my life. Memories to keep me warm when I'm too old to make any more of my own. You know, I really hope that never happens. I really hope that along with everybody else, that you never get too old to make your own memories and to make new and fun memories. Okay, let me see. What story should I read next? Okay, here's another one that is autobiographical, but hopefully it's not a tearjerker and won't make me start crying. Going back to school at age 40, my experience. Okay, so I guess I should preface this by saying that I went to college. I completed 1 year of college straight after high school, and then stopped attending. My parents were having problems, and school was stressful. I mean, it was enjoyable, but it was stressful. And I thought that by moving back, that maybe I could somehow, smooth out the problems that they were having. But I think at that point they had already been married for like 20 years, and they had experienced a lot of up and downs, especially with my father's alcoholism, and then my mother was probably, just ready to get out of the relationship because it was very difficult, and there were all four of my sisters were still at home. So I dropped out of college then, and about 3 or 4 years later, I got married, and then, you know, I was married for 3 years the first time. My oldest son is from that marriage, and then I know we were living in New Mexico at the time. Then I came back to Oklahoma and remarried about a year later, and we had 2 children together, and that was a difficult marriage as well for completely different reasons. And and then after we divorced, I, suddenly found myself with 3 kids and needing to support us, and working at the local deli just wasn't enough money long term to be able to support 3 kids. So I decided to go back to college, and went back to college the year I turned 40. My oldest son graduated from high school, and we actually started college together. He dropped out, and I finished. I finished that time. So this is a little bit more detail about that. Okay, and the story says, it all started the year my oldest son graduated from high school and was awarded a scholarship to pay for 1 year of college. I was newly divorced, working a full-time job and on my feet 8 hours every day. We lived with my mother in a mobile home on her property, and she was such a huge help. My 2 youngest were 7 and 5, and it was really hard on them both when I would come home each evening tired, with no energy to play with them. I began thinking about how I could get a better job that wasn't so physically demanding. Could going back to college be the answer? My youngest son was determined. I'm sorry, I read that word wrong. My youngest son was determined by the Social Security Administration to be developmentally delayed the year before, and part of his income allowed me to drop to part-time employment and go back to college to finish working on my degree. I'd completed my basics right out of high school, but like many others, was tired of year after year of school with no break. So I quit after my 4th semester of college. That break lasted for 22 years through 3 children and 2 failed marriages. With 3 children to support as a single parent, I decided very quickly that I needed more income than those jobs available to me with no degree could provide. I'd always loved reading and learning and was an A and B plus student in high school, but I was told enrolling as a non-traditional student, as older students were called at that time, would be more difficult. That did not deter me. My father had always told me that I could do anything I set my mind to, and I believed him. It was a little surreal being back on the same college campus after 20 plus years. Meeting with an advisor, buying my books in the same campus bookstore, hunting down classroom locations, these experiences were much the same, but others were drastically different. Teenagers sitting next to me in a classroom, computers in the library, instructors and professors who were younger than I, but I absolutely loved it. Test taking has always been easy for me. Mnemonic studying techniques ensured that I always passed with high marks, except for that one accounting class. I just couldn't get it. My instructors were so easy to work with, and I think I actually worked harder to prove myself just because I was often the oldest student in the class. I was worried about the statistics class my degree required. I was worried because it involved math, which had never been my strong point. Did you see the comment about accounting in the previous paragraph? I got a D plus in accounting, my worst grade ever. But statistics involved algebra, which I'd never had in high school, and which the young nursing students who surrounded me were frightened of also. Nevertheless, I can't tell you how much I loved that stats class. I came out of it with an A. Such a boost to my confidence. One other class that I remember very distinctly was debate. It wasn't called that exactly. It was some communications class, not speech because I'd already had that. And once again, I was the oldest student in class. It gave me an entirely new perspective on how to argue from a viewpoint. When it was my turn to present my topic, I had prepared 19 points of rebuttal, most of which I didn't get to use simply because the students in the class had not thought to ask them. But I was working to impress my instructor, who was in his early 30s and rather nice looking. I knew what I wanted from college, and I had mapped out how I was going to achieve it. I think sometimes young people enroll because it's what's expected, and they are not clear on what they want to study and where they want to be in 4 years. They change their major area of study once or twice, spend a lot of time socializing, and not enough time with study materials. Of course, there are exceptions, just like the fact that not all older students have a hard time keeping up. I completed my psychology degree with a 3.43 GPA. See, I wrote that down in this article, and it was on a recent work application, what my GPA was, and I couldn't remember what it was. I didn't remember that I had put it in this article. Anyway, I completed my psychology degree with a 3.43 GPA and was able to get a job the month after I graduated working for the state of Oklahoma, the Department of Human Services. Finally, I was able to support my children well, and the following year we bought a small house, which is now paid off. I'm so grateful when I contrast how my life was before and after I finished college. This has reinforced my belief that you are never too old to go after your dreams. If you can imagine it, you can reach any goal with enough hard work and persistence. And don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do, achieve, be, or learn. Because if you want it, you can have it. Okay. And that article, like I said, was written for Medium and still published on Medium. And it was published on December 30th of 2021. I must have been reaching deep in the barrel to be talking about personal things, though. Most of the time, I was either writing about Medium itself or I was writing about other topics. And some of them you'll know. Some of the other topics are coming up pretty soon. Okay. Okay. And another little story. I haven't been reading any of the comments that people made on. Sometimes that's the most interesting part. Is, hey Amanda, I see you're on. Hi. You weren't on earlier when I was crying and boohooing, were you? That was pretty sad. I need to remember to keep my tissues right here by the computer because that was pretty rough. I should have skipped that story. I did yesterday. I should have skipped it today. Okay. So the next story that I'm going to read was published in January, and it was an article about Medium itself, because one of the things that you can do on the platform is you can write your a little short bio that is by your name and your picture. And so some people get pretty creative when they write their little bios, okay? So, and I hope I'm just going to use their first name. If they've told me what their whole name is, I'm just going to tell you their first name so nobody can get upset. Okay, Mal has a picture of a Malamute in her circle and informs us that on the internet they can't tell that you're actually a dog. Some of these are pretty cute. Oh, please, Amanda, you do not have to go back and watch that. Okay, Kitty writes that among other things, she is a dreamer / wanderer / mischief explorer / country mouse. More tags to follow over time. So, you know what they say about being forewarned. Kristen says she is striving for kindness and creativity in all things. My motto, serious plus important does not equal boring. I thought that was pretty good. Steve says he is a writer of rumors, gossip, lies, and dreams, poet, scallywag, whippersnapper, and galactic co-pilot. I thought that was pretty ambitious. Some writers state the obvious and say what most of us are thinking. Anna says, "Thank you for checking out my work." You know, all of us would say that, really. And Vidhu says, "I try to make sense of everything around me." That's pretty obvious. I mean, you have to be pretty aware if you get out, even when you're walking down the street, you have to be aware of what's going on. Marianne tells us, "I write about my experiences. Welcome." Abby warns us that, and this is a male, warns us that he's looking at the world through colored glasses and dumping my ideas on Medium. And you know what? A lot of beginning writers, I think, use the platform to just dump their ideas out there. And you know what? Everybody has to start somewhere. So it's okay. He can come on to Medium and dump his ideas here, and sometimes just getting it out of your head helps, I don't know, like smooth your thoughts or make your mind calm down. I think that's why so many people journal. Okay, let me see, where was I at? Belinda gives us a heads up. Sure, the story has been told before, but not the way I'll tell it. And Aaron cautions us, "Don't be fooled. I have no idea what I'm doing. Some bios make us a little sad. John says, retired for a year and had to unretire. Needed purpose. Bucket listing wasn't enough. Then I lost my son to leukemia and life was turned inside out. And that will do it to any of us, I'm telling you. Just a little humor. Jay tells us that among other things, he is a serial failure pro nap taker. What? I still have characters left? I don't know that I'll ever spice up my bio more than it is already. I think I prefer putting my creative efforts into my actual work, but I will definitely be thinking about it. What interesting bios have you read lately? I know that there are many more out there. And that was in January. So we are already to January. But you know what? I live streamed. This is my third day in a row, and I've been reading a few of my stories in each live stream. And I'm only just now getting to January, which is 2 months after when I started writing. So I've been writing on the platform for 3 years. So I have a lot more to go. I'm not going to try to do it all today, but, oh, I did it again. But I will eventually get to all of my stories. And then, I don't know, I might have to just start making them up off of the top of my head. Believe me, I do have a lot of things in there. Okay. What was before what's in your bio? The box story. The box story is just an essay, really. And I did it just as a prompt to myself to see if I could write a story on the most boring thing that I could think of. And so, you look around, you see what's around you, and there was a box. And I'm like, I wonder if I could write a story on that. So now, I couldn't even tell you what's in it because it's been so long since I've read this, but let me read it now. The first time that I wrote a blog, I picked a goofy topic. My random topic was cardboard boxes. I just wanted to see if I could actually write about cardboard boxes enough to satisfy the minimum demands of the platform I was writing for. So I just wrote and wrote until I realized that my favorite part of blogging was actually the process itself, the discovery of new topics, the exploration of old ones, and the serendipitous moment when an idea comes together into something truly compelling and useful, which is sort of where this post starts. That blog got me started writing for Kindle, which is a pretty cool accomplishment in itself because I think people tend to forget how much work it takes to get started writing in the first place. So now that you've read some of my short stories, my articles, my poetry, which I haven't read on here, I'm sorry, it's really not that good. You haven't missed anything. And my travel musings, I did do some of my stories about when I went to Washington State. What do you think? Is writing worth the work and effort you've put into it? I, for one, love writing and can't imagine a better way to be creative. And you know what? I don't even think that story was about boxes. It was about writing about boxes. Oh my goodness. And you know what? I never questioned it until just this moment. Wow. Okay, so, here was one that I just thought was funny. Sometimes I don't think of myself as being a humor writer, but once in a while I have a humorous thought, and then it just happened when I was writing. So the two things came together. I thought it was funny, and so I decided to write about it. The name of this article is What Your Pig Says About You. Yes, your pig actually talks about you when you're not home, but they're cool about it. They are not judgmental because they've been on that side of the fence before and, well, it's not cool. So they do talk about you, but only the good stuff. Pigs are intelligent, affectionate, and make really good pets. They have a lot of traits that we humans share with them, which makes it easy to understand what they're saying when they grunt or snort or squeal in your face. I know this because my husband is a pig farmer. Okay, that was a little bit of, that's a case of where my imagination was taking over. My husband was never a pig farmer in real life. But in this story, he was a pig farmer. When you take into consideration all the things they can do, they really are very smart animals. So they understand that gossiping and slander are very bad things. They don't gossip about each other, and they would certainly not tell all your neighbors about what goes on in your bathroom, for instance. No, sirree. You don't have a pig, you say? Let me check my notes. Oh, yes, I meant to say what your dog says about you when you go to work. Yes, that's what I meant. Okay, well, it was funnier at the time. Okay, so that one, and that was only a 2-minute read, so that wasn't too torturous, was it? Oh, here's another article similar to the box. I know that you were just salivating for this one, weren't you? This one's called Boring Flooring. Okay, I want to write about the most boring topic I can think of. You can have a part in the decision I eventually make, but you have to be quick. You will have to contact me immediately before I hit publish. You may already be too late. I'm debating on whether to write about my floors or something else entirely, but in the end the floors will win out and I'll have to come up with a metaphor to express that feeling, the one we all feel when faced with what's essentially just a pile of white wood and concrete, the feeling of being stuck in an endless cycle of disappointment in a relationship that is not going anywhere. Let me check my thesaurus. This is the basis for the entire argument I am about to make here, and it has to do with a simple thing. You are bored. It's so boring talking about being bored, and the actual things you can do to pass the time are so limited, and nothing is interesting to me anymore. I just want to sit around doing nothing all day or go out and get a pizza, which I would be too lazy to cook. Perhaps I'll just have something delivered. But then life will suddenly take an interesting turn, and I start to notice little things that might usually interest me if they were my own personal, ordinary little things. But as a very tall, very thin person, which you can see I'm not, and I never have been, which you can see, no. As a very tall, very thin person, these little things are quite important to me. Like, for example, the fact that all my pants fall down when I sit down because my hips don't have anything to hold them up. In fact, if it weren't for suspenders, I'd have to wear dresses all the time, which is fine in moderation, of course, but you know what? Pants are just more comfortable. Wait, what was I talking about? Being bored? I think I have more serious issues than boredom happening here, folks. Let me get back to you on that. And that is one of the best things about writing, is that if you can find a good source of writing prompts, if you have any imagination whatsoever, you can literally start typing and stringing words together, and after a while you'll either hit delete or you'll hit publish. And hopefully if you choose publish, it will be something that somebody else maybe a lot of somebody else's want to read. Okay, here's another one that I wrote on January 7th of 2022. And this one is called My New Year's Resolution. Wow, I wonder what I resolved to do that year that I never did. So we are fixing to find out. I wanted to write about making a New Year's resolution for myself. New Year's Eve is just around the corner, and I bought a new notebook so I could write all of this down. But as I'm writing this, it's 11:30 p.m. on December 31st, and I haven't made any resolutions yet. Everyone else is writing about this topic, so I am feeling like the student who transfers in the middle of the school year. What do you mean there's a pop quiz? It's my first day. New Year's resolutions are important milestones in anyone's life, whether they're conscious of them or not, whether we call it New Year's resolutions or personal goals or just goals. Some people have a goal of never setting New Year's resolutions. Generally, this would be my category since I'm an introvert, and introverts often have the tendency to procrastinate until the last minute on any given goal. But this year is different. I'm writing on Medium, and starting something new gives me big ideas. So I thought it might be fun to write down some things that I want to do for myself over the coming year and then force myself to get started on them today rather than waiting until the end of December. Remind me to get started on goals/resolutions earlier in the year. I'm publishing this a week into 2022. The truth is, I don't really know what my goals are this year other than writing interesting articles for millions of readers to enjoy here on Medium, and the new goal of getting started on resolutions/goals for 2023 earlier than I did this time. As of now, I have a very fuzzy plan on how I am going to achieve my goals, although if anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. Oh, and I need to lose 20 pounds by the summer. Being a procrastinator, I'll probably put this off until spring. I must run out and buy a new notebook to write down all of my goals, ideas, and plans. Wow. I'm sure I couldn't have filled up the notebook that fast. I think I was just wanting to write a New Year's resolution because it seems like every first week of January, everybody on Medium is writing their New Year's resolutions articles, and nobody ever follows them up with like, did I achieve this? Did I get it done? The only time really that you see before and after things very successfully is here on YouTube, where people can actually post pictures of before and after, and that usually works well. I think it just holds you more accountable because you realize that people are going to be like, oh, we saw what you said you were going to do. We heard you say you were going to do this. And so now we're going to hold you to it. I wrote an article the same day called Lottery Winners. Maybe I was dreaming big that week too. And the name of it was, Did You Check Your Lottery Ticket This Week? Okay. Check your tickets. I don't know. This looks like this looks more like a news piece. This week, Powerball tickets sold in Wisconsin and California will split $632 million after hitting Wednesday night's jackpot, but other big winners live in Arizona. The Arizona Lottery announced Thursday a $1 million ticket was sold at a Circle K store near 40th Street and Thunderbird Road in Phoenix. It matched all 5 numbers but did not match the Powerball. If you are the person who always buys a lottery ticket at the same store or with the same numbers, be sure and let us know if you won big and what your plans are. Last month, Jason Miller of Raleigh Iron Station said a spur-of-the-moment decision to buy Powerball tickets became a life-changing moment when he won $100,000 in Saturday's drawing. $6 changed my life, Miller said. I've got 2 babies at home, and they sure are going to have an amazing Christmas now. In November 2021, Jerry and Teresa Maples won $2 million. The couple, Maples, had been traveling through 11 states, and in each state they bought a couple of lottery tickets. That's how they happened to buy a Powerball ticket at the Stop-In food store at 2375 Roanoke Street in Christiansburg. That ticket ended up being a $2 million winner. It still doesn't feel real yet, Ms. Maples told Virginia lottery officials as they claimed their prize. And one Massachusetts resident became a millionaire the month before that. Victor Van of Haverhill is the second $1 million prize winner from Massachusetts in the Monday, October 4 Powerball drawing that featured a $699.8 million jackpot. Van won this prize by matching the first 5 numbers on his Quick Pick ticket. He claimed his $1 million prize, before taxes, at the Massachusetts State Lottery's Dorchester headquarters, Wednesday, October 13. He plans on putting his winnings toward his education and helping his family pay off their mortgage. For myself, having an aversion to gambling and more importantly, to having utilities shut off for non-payment, I prefer to spend my money more wisely at McDonald's and Walmart. That way I always have something to show for my paltry income. But it's nice to dream big. And reading that news piece, I'm like, okay, so I am brand new on YouTube Live, and I don't have that many people watching my live stream or even the replays. So I could probably read the newspaper. I could read the newspaper from Antlers and Hugo nearby, and where's the nearest? Clayton has a newspaper. I could read all of those, and probably nobody would even care. What do you think, Amanda? You think I have a reading voice for the newspaper? Because, I do have plenty of material for my stories here, but I'm thinking I just read a news piece that I wrote about. I could read the newspaper. Okay, let me see. Now there is another story that I wrote that has 3 parts, but I'm not going to start that tonight because that one's way too long. But it's really cute. I did like that one. Okay. And of course, along with writing stories and coming up with ideas, another thing that every writer loves is words. Words, especially unusual words or unusual sounding words. It can be fun to fit those into an article. And so some of my favorite words are words that we don't use very much anymore. If you watch Mary Poppins, what is that one? Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You know that one. But there are other words that we've used before too, that we just don't use anymore. Okay, well, I'll try to stay away from the newspaper then. Thank you for that feedback, Amanda. I appreciate that. I think it's just you and me. Okay, so this next article then was me using some unusual words that we don't use that much. And the name of it is, Are You a Flibbertigibbet or Just Scatterbrained? I think they could actually be the same. I'm not sure. There's probably, you know what, as a writer, I should know there are nuances to words. And so I know there's a difference between flibbertigibbet and scatterbrained, but they're pretty close. They're in the same neighborhood. Okay. Are you a genuine flibbertigibbet? They aren't as rare as you would think. In their native habitat, Flibbertigibbets are also called by other names: muggins, sapheads, or saps for short, and tomfools. You ever heard of tomfoolery? Both saps and tomfools sound masculine to me, but it's not my call to make up definitions. Flibbertigibbet is most often applied to the female of the species, although they display certain characteristics that may be mistaken for a scatterbrain. So is there any overlap? Yes and no. A thesaurus will tell you they are semantically related. A genuine flibbertigibbet is characterized by being frivolous, flighty, or excessively talkative. If I'm doing all the talking tonight, I guess that makes me a flibbertigibbet for the evening. A scatterbrain is disorganized and lacking in concentration. Hey, this is the general consensus. I didn't just make this stuff up. Plus, the dictionary says so. Other names for being scatterbrained are bird-brained, empty-headed, and feather-brained. Does that remind you of anyone you know? So, although scatterbrains can also be a flibbertigibbet, one can be a scatterbrain without the second appellation. Additionally, can one truly be a talkative flibbertigibbet with nothing to say, empty-headed? I think not, but you be the judge. I just enjoy the way the word feels as it floats past your lips. Can you say it? Flibbertigibbet. What was the other one? Scatterbrain. Scatterbrain isn't as difficult, but flibbertigibbet, that one's a little more difficult. Okay. I think I might have time for one more story. And I wanted to share this. This is more of a news thing, but I thought it was absolutely fascinating, okay? There is a TED Talk on a guy who got rejected on purpose for 100 days. And I'm telling you, it's something that I've always wanted to try. I don't know that I could ever have enough courage to actually try this because, like most people, I have a fear of rejection, but he wanted to overcome that. Okay, Jia Zhang, and I'm not sure if I'm saying his name correctly, it sounds Asian, is a young man who battled with rejection and found a unique way to overcome it. Maybe you've heard the TED Talk in which he describes his journey to conquer the fear of rejection beginning at age 6. As an adult, he decided to find a way to overcome this fear, and he set a goal of being rejected for 100 consecutive days. Some of the requests that he planned to get rejected were, number one, borrow $100 from a stranger. Just walk up to a stranger and ask to borrow $100 because he knew that he would get rejected, but he planned for it. So hopefully he wouldn't have the feeling of rejection because it was expected. Number two, request a burger refill. Okay, I'm pretty sure we'd get rejected for that too. Rejection number 6 was play soccer in someone's backyard. Rejection number 7, speak over Costco's intercom. Like they'd ever let you get that close to the intercom. Rejection number 15, be a live mannequin at Abercrombie. Number 18, give a weather forecast on live TV. Number 21, ask strangers for compliments. Number 23, be a greeter at Starbucks. Number 26, give a lecture to a college student or to college students. Number 30, slide down the fire pole at a fire station. Number 33, grill my own meat at Salt Lick. I'm guessing that's a fast food restaurant. I'm not familiar with that one. Number 38, challenge a CEO to a staring contest. Number 41, sit in a police car's driver's seat. Number 46, borrow $100 bills from the bank for a paper plane fight. Borrow $100 bills from the bank for... I'm not sure about that one. Number 51, make my own sandwich at Subway. Number 54, dance with my waitress. Number 58, name my own price at Dollar Tree. Wow, I'd love to do that one. Number 68, exchange secrets with strangers. Number 71, change coffee shop's Wi-Fi password. Wow. Number 82, sit on Lincoln's lap, and more. Number 95, borrow a book from Barnes & Noble, like you would a library. Number 100, interview President Obama. I guess it would be the current president. For a complete list of the 100 days of rejection tasks, along with videos for most, click here. Well, you're not actually reading it on Medium, so you can't click on that, but you can find it by looking up TED Talk and maybe rejection. That might get it. He found at first that his fear was so strong that he would ask, be rejected, and then want to leave immediately in humiliation and embarrassment. Somewhere early in the experiment, though, he learned that if he resisted the urge to leave after rejection, if he just stayed, he could turn a no into a yes. How? By using the word why. Why allowed him to understand that most people say no because what you are asking does not fit their needs, their wants. It's not because you look a certain way or because they don't trust you. It's not the million reasons we think people are rejecting us for. It's just because it's not what they want. He also found that he could increase the chances of a yes if he would see the request from the viewpoint of the person being asked. By acknowledging their doubts about consenting, the other person felt you were thinking like they were, seeing things from their point of view. Finally, he had an epiphany. That's another word that kind of rolls off your tongue, doesn't it? Epiphany? He realized on a deeper level that he could fulfill every dream he had simply by asking, and then asking why, or why not, and thinking ahead to overcome common doubts others might have that leads them to say no before they've really given it thought. He concluded by pointing to the examples of Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, and Jesus Christ, who did not let rejection define them. By embracing rejection and using it, he says, it just might become one of your greatest gifts. And I thought that was such an inspiring story that I knew that I wanted to keep it in written form somehow to remind myself that I wanted to try to overcome my own fear of rejection. And I'm pretty sure all of us feel the same way. You know, we're worried about people telling us no to whatever it is that we're asking, that we don't ever think past the no. We don't ever think past the point of what can I do to change the no to a maybe or to a yes. So I need to put that on my calendar. I need to work on that. It would be pretty easy to work on it. Just come up with things that you think people would say no to. Oh, by the way, Amanda, I wanted to tell you that you are not required to stay on here for as long as I live stream. If you have other things to do that you need to go do, then you just go ahead and go do them. You are not going to hurt my feelings if I look up there and see a 0. In fact, it's kind of a little stress relieving to look up there and see a 0. But anyway, As a side note, I will tell you that I researched it, and Medium actually allows you to live stream up to 11 hours. I think it's 11 hours. And then after that, you have to stop and restart. And I asked Jonathan, my son, I asked him if he knew that. And he said, "Yeah, I know that, Mom." I said, how do you know that?" And he said, "Because I watch was it Ryan Hall do his live weather forecasts. And when there's a hurricane or when there's tornadoes and all that, he will say on there, okay, I need to get off here and then restart again because, because he's reached the time limit on YouTube. And I had never even paid attention to that because I didn't ever need to know that before. So I thought I would let you know. I'm not doing ever, I don't think I'm ever doing 11 hours of live streaming, but the idea that it's a possibility. I think at some point I would probably lose my voice. So that might not be such a good thing for me. But today we're going for a few more minutes, so I need to find another story to read. Now, this next one that I published on January 10th of 2022 is about earthing. And I don't know if you're familiar with earthing, but it's, anytime you put your bare feet on the ground, on dirt or grass, or just anytime you're in contact with the earth, with nothing between you and the ground. And I hadn't realized how good it was for your health. And so I wanted to write the article on it because I was a little excited to find that out. When I was a child, I spent hours outside, mostly barefoot. In the hot, muggy summertime, dirt always felt cooling. My sisters and I played in the dirt, dug holes, and made our share of mud pies. We'd never heard of mudding, mud baths, or mud packs. We did know dirty little boys who liked to stomp in the mud puddles. Is it possible that we've forgotten natural ways of being healthy? Pre-packaged and fast foods with decreased nutritional content, spending less time in nature, sedentary jobs that lock us away from fresh air and sunshine for most of our waking days, and less water consumption all contribute to an unhealthy lifestyle for millions. It wasn't until 1998 that Clint Ober would have the idea that our bodies could benefit from being in touch with the Earth's negatively charged electrons. Most shoes worn today use rubber, which insulates the body from grounding with the earth. By once again going barefoot, or lying on the ground, or submerging yourself in water by swimming in lakes, ponds, or the ocean, you can reconnect to the earth's natural healing energy. Earthing, also known as grounding, can also refer to sleeping indoors connected to conductive systems, some of them patented, that transfer energy from the ground into the body. People use earthing for pain and inflammation reduction, mood improvement, and to improve medical conditions such as chronic fatigue, chronic pain, anxiety and depression, sleep disorders, and cardiovascular disease. Studies are currently underway to produce additional empirical results. Why not try it for yourself? It's very simple to do. When you're outside, ground yourself by letting the bottoms of your feet, palms of your hand, or your entire body touch the earth. You might want to wait for a warm day, although you don't have to. Walk in the grass, swim in the ocean, or lay on the beach. Some people also use their hands or arms to touch or hug trees, which is another way of reconnecting yourself to the earth. And don't resist the urge to take off your shoes and stomp in a mud puddle or two after a warm spring rain. Hey, that's what showers are for. So, how long has it been since you've actually been barefoot, Amanda? You know, most days, even when I'm in the house, I usually put on flip-flops or something. I hardly ever go barefoot, even inside. Does Sarah ever go barefoot? Does she always wear shoes too? Well, you do better than I do then if you're if you go barefoot in the house, because I mean I have carpet in, well, in most rooms except for the kitchen and bathroom, and so it feels really good when I walk on the carpet, but I don't know, it just, I get in the habit of just slipping my flip-flops on, and then I never think to even take them off. Okay, I'm going to read one more story. It's called Buck Creek Adventure. Well, Sarah and you both need to get outside and put your feet on the dirt for once. You can wash each other's feet after that. Okay, this one is Buck Creek Adventure. Buck Creek is a creek, a little, is it a subsidiary of the Kiamichi River, near where we live, and where we used to live a little further out in the country, and we would go down to Buck Creek sometimes and just wade around in the very shallow water. So, and my sisters and I have both been down there quite a bit, but of course that was years ago. And so I wrote this story about that memory. Oh, and actually, I think this might have been like one of those that I kind of mixed something real with maybe something that didn't actually happen. Writers do that. Did I tell you about the time my sister and I climbed up the side of Buck Creek Mountain and into Kiamichi Wilderness? We actually did that. My sister Debbie and I did. Well, let me tell you about our little adventure that day. As soon as we'd had some sort of breakfast, Mama let us fend for ourselves most days, but she never complained about what we ate from the kitchen. I headed out the door. Mama preferred us to make our own entertainment, and she was a very hands-off parent. If you wanted to talk, she was there, and she often told us stories about her own childhood, but other than that, we could do just about anything and go anywhere as long as we weren't under her feet. Those might have been her Harlequin days. She spent a lot of time in her room. I think Daddy's drinking was getting bad, and this was her way of separating herself from the consequences, or even just dealing with that trauma. Anyway, I especially enjoyed going for long walks in the woods and finding little nooks and crannies to just be in the silence and think. Usually, my younger sisters were doing their own thing, but one day my little sister Debbie decided she was going to follow me wherever I went. Maybe she thought I was having a little more fun than everyone else. I don't know. I was about 15 or so, so she would have been about 11. I didn't even notice that she'd followed me until we were about a mile from the house and heading to Buck Creek Bridge. Well, she was cheerful and talkative, which meant all I had to do was listen. And I didn't mind that much. Debbie had kinky, curly blonde hair and blue eyes, unlike myself, who had inherited Dad's brown hair and brown eyes. So together, we turned down dusty Buck Creek Road and walked a little ways before daring each other to cross the actual creek. I don't even think we planned to climb up the side of the mountain that day. We just kept going once we started. The creek was about 30 feet across and pretty shallow, with lots of large boulders sticking up so that you could actually jump from rock to rock as long as you picked fairly flat ones. But it was warm weather, so if your feet got wet or you fell in, it wouldn't be too cold. Once we crossed, we looked up the side of Buck Creek Mountain, and over to the left, some distance away, we saw one of the cabins that vacationers had built up in Kiamishi Wilderness. Not really thinking it through, we decided to climb the side of the mountain, no vertical faces here, folks, and see the cabin up close. We never thought about snakes or other disasters. We just climbed and kept climbing. Neither one of us had watches, and that was decades before any of us had phones that you could carry in your pocket. Even if we'd had a phone, the mountains would have blocked the cell tower signals because they still do. But we were hardy girls. I wouldn't call us mountain folk, but we were strong and sturdy and did just about whatever popped into our heads. I remember having fun just climbing. It took us hours, though. In fact, it took the entire day. Somewhere in the middle of the trek, we lamented not having brought any food with us. We reached the top finally and found one of the logging roads to trudge down until we found the main road into Kiamishi Wilderness area. Fortunately, the rest of the long walk home was mostly downhill, so that helped. We got home around 6 p.m., starving to death, and it was still daylight. We were so tired we probably didn't even think about going anywhere else for a couple of days. Mama didn't even ask where we'd been all day. She had supper ready by the time we got home, though. Pinto beans and cornbread with fried potatoes and sweet tea. Oh, it's still one of my favorites. We had pinto beans a lot when I was growing up. It's still one of my favorite meals to this day. That adventure on Buck Creek is one of my favorite memories of growing up out in the sticks. 2 years later, I graduated high school and moved away to live with my Uncle Carl and his wife Connie. But I will never forget the freedom of those days and walking through those woods in rural Oklahoma. And you'd think I lived somewhere else, like far away or maybe in another country whenever I say it like that. But no, I'm still in Oklahoma. Okay. Well, I haven't had a lot of people on, and if I haven't had a lot of commenting, but thank you, Amanda, for staying with me. I appreciate that. It's sort of like walking by yourself in a down an alley that you're unfamiliar with, but I have somebody with me that can keep an eye on me. And I can see now because, we fixed that. I can see the comments, but can you see the other comments as well? I'm guessing you do because I remember, like, if I watch like news things, I can see what other people are commenting and to each other. Okay, good. I just wasn't sure. Okay. But I had one gentleman here, Michael, and he commented a little bit. So I'm pretty sure he was listening for just a little bit anyway. And I appreciate that. I appreciate everybody that stopped by today. So let me see. And what is this one? Here's another one. I think this was just an article where I was just like whining about everything because that does happen. I usually try to make it a little humorous though, so it's not just an absolute complete rant. But, it's been a while since I read this, so I'm not sure what it's going to say. Okay, this one is called So You Have Problems. Not saying you don't, but... And I guess I was just going to complain about my problems. And so that reminded me of a quote that I put in the article. We've got troubles right here in River City. Did you ever see The Music Man? Yep, he had problems too. I am fully aware that you, Bob, have troubles at home and at work. And Mary, I see your posts on Facebook about your crazy brother-in-law. I know that all of us have issues, complications, and conundrums. See, there it is with those strange words again. I like using those unusual words that you don't see that often. Maybe it's just me that doesn't see them that often. Okay, we all have issues with ourselves, our children, our families, our communities, in the country we live, and on this globe we live on. I watch the news, worry, and see the same depressing scenes you do. Oh my goodness, and this was 3 years ago. It feels like we're on this what is it, that hamster wheel going around and around with the same problems. I feel deeply about doing my part in helping the world and others. But you don't need me telling you what my problems are, or what you should think about climate change, the situation in Algeria, drug overlords in South America, or acne. I'm not here for that. Check CNN or YouTube or your news channel of choice. I'm here to share with you what lifts my spirits and makes me laugh and feel joyful. What I write will be what's meaningful to me, what encourages me, and what gives me hope to keep going. I think I'm pretty normal. I think what things I find encouraging, I think probably most of you find that encouraging as well. So I'm pretty middle of the road. To commiserate just a little so that you know you're not alone in having these things called feelings and emotions and a life. After all, that's what I look for when I'm reading. I want to forget about my problems for just a while and become immersed in someone else's life and experiences. I want to be a pirate, an active. I'll probably never get to be those things in real life, so this is the closest it's going to get. And for all those reasons, I want to giggle at cute kittens and be in awe of rainbows. And that was the end of that story. I think I just wanted to remind people that there are still things to laugh about. You know, there are still nice people that do good things for others. There are still people who care about others. There are still good things in the world, and you just have to look a little harder for them these days. All right, well, I think I have just about done all my voice is going to be able to do for today. And so, wait, are you not on? Hold on just a second. Okay. And my laptop was fixing to die on me. And you know, another thing that I never heard anyone talk about lives, about going live on YouTube, is the fact that it depends on the devices, I guess, you use. Because my camera, my webcam is not working on my laptop, I'm using my tablet to live stream on, but I need my laptop on to not only see the comments because they don't show on my tablet, but I also need a split screen on my notebook so that I can read my stories, because that's on a separate site. So I never heard anybody mention about needing more than one device whenever you're live streaming, but that's totally a thing. So anyway, I can tell that my voice is getting hoarse because I don't usually read quite out loud quite this much. And so I'm going to go ahead and sign off a little bit earlier than I was planning on doing, but I will be back tomorrow. And if you've missed any of my stories, or if you just want to see them, or listen to them actually, watch me read them is what you're doing, then you'll be able to go back and see any of those. And so tomorrow, I mean, we're still like at the beginning of January. I'm just on January 10. So I've got plenty of stuff to bore you with. And if you do like to watch people read their stories that they've written or talk about writing, then please consider subscribing. And once again, I want to thank my friend Amanda at Mandarin Makes for giving me feedback on my camera yesterday and for staying with me today. And one of these days, I'm hoping that we can collaborate together, which I'm really excited about. I don't think she's as excited about it as I am, but you can see some of the little critters that she crochets. They're just adorable on her channel. And I think she has some shorts. I'm not sure if she has some long form, but long videos. But Amanda, if you do have any, if you have any videos, or maybe you could just leave a link in the comments, Amanda, and so that people can go check out the little things that you've crocheted. That would be a lot of fun. I think they're sweet, and I like the music that you pick on your shorts too, by the way. Okay, and thank you again to my personal IT guy, which is my youngest son, John, who helped me realize how I could get my comments turned on so that I can see when people are actually commenting on my live stream. So I appreciate that. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye.